Welcome to tonight's event. Most of you know me, but my name is Oscar Hisa. I'm the Director of Learning and Engagement at ICALA. And we are so excited to have our featured guest here in LA, all the way from Montgomery, Alabama. And she's going to be part of our constellation of programs around the exhibition Ciencia Sexualis. Ciencia Sexualis is an ambitious group survey of contemporary artists whose work take up the fraught relationship between sex, gender, and science. Organized by Jennifer Doyle, professor of English, University of California, Riverside, and Jean Vaccaro, assistant professor of transgender studies and museum studies at the University of Kansas. This exhibition is realized as part of the ambitious collaboration across arts institutions throughout Southern California, known as PST, Art and Science Collide. And it is led by the Getty Foundation. So thank you, Getty Foundation. Artist and activist Michelle Browder will take us on a narrative journey to Montgomery, Alabama. She is the sculptor of the incredible monument, the Mothers of Gynecology. It is a monument park. And she's the creator of the More Up Campus, for community and youth empowerment, where the dark history of Dr. J. Marion Sims and his medical experiments on enslaved women is confronted, addressed, and processed for healing. The title for tonight's talk is Reclaiming Space with Art, History, and Courageous Conversations. There are artists in Ciencia Sexualis who also address this difficult medical past around gynecology and Dr. J. Marion Sims with courageous and rageous works of art like Colleen Smith, which we can see here, Now Bustamante, and King Cobra. We will hear more about the art and community vision of Michelle Browder tonight. We've been wanting this night to happen for nearly a year. And I'll tell you why, because in January of this year, our Fieldwork Council patron group that supports ICALA's learning and engagement, many members are here from the Fieldwork Council group. Thank you so much for your support. And we all went to Montgomery, Alabama for a long weekend to see the legacy sites, which are monumental projects that address the history of slavery created by another visionary, Bryan Stevenson. If you do not know the legacy sites, please look it up. There we met Michelle Browder to do one of her highly recommended, fantastic tours of the city. And we were completely informed, but also transformed by our time with Michelle and the city. I personally want everyone in this country to go to Birmingham and Montgomery, Alabama, to learn and reckon with the truths of how this country was built on racism, violence, and inhumane realities. But I also want everyone to go there to see the extraordinary work being done by people like Michelle to move forward. I want to acknowledge that we wouldn't have known about Michelle Browder if it wasn't for the research being done around this exhibition, Ciencia Sexualis, by Jennifer Doyle and Jean Vaccaro. This research began 5 years ago. So I'd like to invite Jennifer to come up and say a few words about that research, and then she will hand it off to Michelle. So thank you so much for coming. Enjoy the evening.
I'm not going to hog the mic for too long, going against my every instinct. But I just want to say that when we first began doing this work, one of the things, so a conversation that Jean and I would have over and over again when we were looking at work is, we're trying to think about works together, works inside a museum. Obviously, this is like an object-based museum exhibition. But when you're meeting artists and doing research in this space, one of the stories you see over and over again is that an artist comes into this history, and here this is the history of gynecology and the exploitation of Black people um, uh, in the service of racial capitalism and often under the name of science. People move in different directions, and sometimes they move towards making objects, and Cobra is a really great example of that, though people will know that from last week, like Cobra is also a tattoo artist, has a performance practice, and kind of, lives the practice in her everyday life. A lot of artists move in a direction that is towards other people and towards communities and towards care and making more life more possible. They're also living their practice. And I'm thinking not only of Michelle Browder, but to me, like kind of like a cousin or a relative, or the queer feminist socialist / communist / punks in Barcelona, who established a thing called the Gynepunk. It's a kind of a lab, a community center, but also like workshops, and it's also an online platform where you can basically get the program to do a 3D printed speculum at home, for example. They do workshops on the history of gynecology and like decolonizing that history. Gynepunk was originally associated with Paula Pin, who's a Spanish artist, and Clau Quinque, who's a Chilean artist who I think is now based in Mexico. I already knew as an American studies scholar a bit, right, about Marion Sims. I have to be honest, so much of the work that one does when you work in the 19th century in Reconstruction, you're often looking at such grim and horrible histories. Sometimes you look a little bit away from things that feel a little too much. And so I probably too late in my career, really, did I get to know the full depths. And also to kind of let myself sense how much the tentacles, right, of that history kind of wrap themselves around different aspects of our everyday lives, right? So I was taking a seminar with some of the Gynepunk folks in the depth of COVID. They could not stop talking about Anarcha. That name, Anarcha, came up over and over and over again. There's actually a punk band in Spain called Algo Toxico, and they have a song called Anarcha Glandula, and it's a punk expression of the desire to rename parts of the body. Parts of the body like the Skeens gland, which are named after Alexander Skeens, who's a white man gynecologist from Scotland who did a lot of his work in the United States. It's actually the female prostate, just FYI. Anyway, their song is like about that. And they have a great raucous refrain, which is basically like, in English, it's something like basically get their names out of my pussy, right? So anyway, really amazing and rousing. And I was just like with these women from, mostly Europe and South America online talking and just seeing how important this history was to them and how they were accessing and reformatting and reclaiming the practice of gynecology in community through this history. And this experience made me turn to Michelle Browder and the Mothers of Gynecology. These are projects I mainly also know only online. And so I'm really happy to be under the same roof with you, because you're really the mothers of, well, you're going to talk about the Mothers of Gynecology, and you're going to, dial everybody into the work that you're doing. But this, the figures of Anarcha, Betsy, and Lucy mean a lot to a lot of people, not only in the United States, but also around the world, that actually the Black feminist reclamation of these three names and the generations of stories that are held by them have really galvanized and organized, a lot of people. And I'm really happy to have an artist here who has really consolidated that work in the form of a monument and a counter-monument, and also as an expression of a lifelong commitment to education and working with youth. So with that, let us welcome a person who is living the practice to share that practice with us.
Ma'am? Thank you all so much for having me, especially after the past 2 weeks that we've had. I'm still grieving, but we're here, and we're going to make the best of it. So my name is Michelle Browder, Montgomery, Alabama. I have to issue my disclaimer because, yes, I come from the antebellum South, historically, and we're still there. We're a red state. And so I come to you from the Confederate States. However, we are the same city that really emancipated Montgomery, and basically that rippling effect happened throughout the country. And I came to this work because my father is the first Black prison chaplain that was born, basically he was appointed by George Wallace. So if you all remember George Wallace, we just had his nephew that's going to, anyway. His nephew is going to be our president. But so George Wallace basically appointed my father to be the first Black prison chaplain for the state of Alabama. And at the time of my father's chaplaincy, there were 2,000 people in prison, men and women in prison. Today, there's 32,000 plus. And so we had the opportunity, my siblings and I, to grow up with murderers and thieves and prostitutes and what they would call the incorrigibles. So where I have my thought process around this history and around art really is shaped by my father. You know, I was kind of pulled into this thing because, no judgment. We're going to go into the no judgment zone. This is no judgment zone. I like to fight. And so as a kid, coming from Denver, Colorado, down to Montgomery, Alabama, where nigger was the word that my teachers would use to call us up to the blackboard, right? So I started fighting. And in my third suspension, my father said to me, "You're not going to sit here and watch Oprah Winfrey all day. I need you." Come on now. Oprah Winfrey, who was it? There's 3 of them. Let me see what kind of crowd I'm talking to. There's 3 of them. So in my generation, there was 3 people at the end of the school day at 3 o'clock. We would go home and we would watch who? Donahue. Who? Donahue. Phil Donahue. Who else? Oprah. Sally Jessy. Who said it? You are too. Sally Jessy Raphael. And I swear to God, my dad was like, "You're not going to sit here and watch Oprah all day. You're going to do something with your life because I don't want to come and visit you in Tutwiler in 10 to 15 years. And Tutwiler is one of the worst prisons for women in the state of Alabama. And so, and I would visit Tutwiler. So I saw, some of the women that were there, but I also fell in love with them because my father, at the end of your sentence in the state of Alabama, if you didn't have a home plan, my father would bring you home because in the state of Alabama, they would keep you in prison, even though you EOS at the end of your sentence. And so my father was like, "This is not right. We're going to start bringing people home." So one night I woke up and there was Lonnie from Cell Block C at the foot of my bed. And I was like, "What are you doing here? You better make friends really quick," because my dad brought home, again, murderers, thieves, you name it. They were at the foot of my bed at any given time. So when I say that my whole ideology about this life and about loving people and accepting people came from my father, but it was also, I was called home. I went off to college. I went to the Art Institute of Atlanta. It's no longer there because, they didn't know what they were doing anyway. That's why I dropped out of college. Went to the Art Institute of Atlanta, and there is where, at the age of 18, I learned about the Mothers of Gynecology. And there was this famous photo of Marion Sims, which, how do I move to the next slide? There we go. The famous photo, Marion Sims, you all have probably seen it. Robert Tom was commissioned by Park Davis to create 45 great moments in medicine. So this is one of the pieces. It really is a full colored piece. So if you go and Google Robert Tom, you would see him. But basically, Park Davis commissioned him. So if you were back in that time, you would see this particular picture of what was believed to be the Mothers of Gynecology in every pharmacy, in every college during that time, because it was customary for them to give these paintings to these, historical medical schools. And so my professor actually had a small postcard of what is to believe Anarcha, right here, Lucy and Betsy, with 2 doctors surrounding them. And I don't think I have the actual picture here, but when I asked my professor, I said, "Tell me more about this postcard." And my professor looked at me and very dismissively, he said to me, "You go figure it out." and I like to fight. And I said, okay. So my fight was over the summer break that I would go and learn, what this postcard was. So there was this place in Atlanta, Georgia called the Shrine of the Black Madonna. And they would teach you the African diaspora. They would teach you about, the transatlantic slave trade. They would teach you about what happened to Black girls and women during this time. And so I went there, and this gentleman, I described to him what I saw, and he immediately started telling me about this photo and the painting and what it meant, which was Black girls were used as breeders, they were sexually trafficked, and this is what was going on. Is this predicament in terms of the fistulas, the medical conditions that a lot of them found themselves in because they were raped, forcibly raped. And so when I went back to school, I never will forget, it was over our summer break, I went back and I wanted to create my whole portfolio to honor those three girls, what is known to believe Anarcha, Lucy, and Betsy. Y'all, I presented my portfolio. I had mugs, I had t-shirts. I was a graphic design major, so you had to come up with like jingles and all of this other stuff. And so I had mugs, t-shirts, bags, and it was the African Arts Festival, and I was showing these Black women, and it was three of them dancing and whatnot. And my portfolio, my professor looked at me and said, your portfolio is too Black, and you need to diversify it. And I said, what does that mean? He was like, you are not gonna graduate. You need to stay an extra year and retool your portfolio, redo it, add more diversity, meaning white. So I said, okay. Art Institute of Atlanta was very expensive, and I just refused to pay that extra money. Don't judge me. I'm not doing it. So I decided prisoner art, because that's what my dad would always say to me. And so I dropped out of college. But it was the best thing that I ever did. I literally started my own t-shirt business, and I started painting this replica of Anarcha, Lucy, and Betsy, and I sold it for like five or 6 years. It was what I did. And then I got a phone call from my mama, and she says, Michelle, we need you to move home. Now I'm having my own best life in Atlanta, started my own business, doing good, right? She says, you gotta come home. And I'm like, why is that? You have 5 other children. Why do you want to call me? And she said, you're the only one that we believe that has the chutzpah, which I say, what the Jewish family say, chutzpah. You're the only, my mother grew up in like a Jewish synagogue. So, she has all of these, and turns out it's like Jewish language. I ain't know, but But anyway, so she was like, you're the only one that can do this. So I moved home, and reluctantly, and I started this youth organization. I said, hey, I'll do it if you would allow me to teach young people art and have my own little thing. She's like, absolutely do it. And so I said, okay, I did that. Then 2012 rolls around. I'm going somewhere with this. You with me? I'm going. 2012 comes around. There's this fine man in downtown Montgomery, Alabama. Oh, Lord. His name is Brian Stevenson. Boy, let me tell you something. I wanted my students to see Brian Stevenson argue Evan Miller v. Alabama in D.C. at the United States Supreme Court. I wanted to show little Black and brown kids that, yes, you can rap, and yes, you can play basketball, but also, yes, you can think, yes, you can argue cases, yes, you can be doctors, yes, you can be a dentist. And so I took 56 young people to watch Brian Stevenson argue Evan Miller v. Alabama at the United States Supreme Court. Can I tell this story? Do y'all know this story? Y'all don't know this story. I don't think I told y'all this story. Child, let me take the mic out. What's going on here? We go to the United States Supreme Court. We're dressed in black and red, decked out. My kids look like they were somebody. And we're standing outside the courtroom. If you've never been to the United States Supreme Court, they only give you 5 minutes to go inside. Have y'all ever been? It's an amazing thing to go watch. So we had 5 minutes, but all 56 of us were out there. They let you in like 25 at a time or something like this. And so I noticed my students were just kind of looking around. They were very observant. At the end of our little tour there, one by one, as we were coming out, Telemundo was outside. CNN was outside. And they started pulling my students that had never been outside of Montgomery, Alabama, and started asking them questions. And I'm like, please, don't ask my children no questions. because we from the hood, right? I'm like, don't do this. So literally, here comes Telemundo. They asked my 10-year-old in Spanish, what did you see in the courtroom? And I'm like, what did they just ask her? And her sister interpreted, what did you see in the courtroom? And she says to Telemundo, what was wrong with the little old lady? Was she asleep? Ginsburg was slumped over. Why are they talking to her? Why? So she repeats back in Spanish. Then she asked my little black kid, you all, when we went into D.C., the first thing we saw were the cherry blossoms. Anybody ever been in D.C. during cherry blossom season? My students was like, oh, Miss Browder, why are they walking around? What's wrong with these people? Why are they walking? They don't have cars. We don't have sidewalks in our community, in our hood. We don't have sidewalks, so we drive everywhere. Then another kid hops up, oh, Miss Browder, what's wrong with these people? They're so thin. Are they sick? We ain't got sidewalks. So I'm like, I'm noticing that there's something happening here. So here comes CNN. Ask my black kid, what did you see in the courthouse, Supreme Court? 9 justices, right? My little black kid comes out. He was like, well, we were all just kind of wondering what's wrong with that black man. What was he looking at on the ceiling? Clarence Thomas is not engaged at all. And my students were standing there like, what is going on, right? So one by one, on our way back to Montgomery, I'm going somewhere with this. On our way back to Montgomery, Alabama, my students said, Miss Browder, we want more. We want more. And I'm like, Miss Browder is getting ready to turn 45. Miss Browder wants some kids, at least one. And they were like, we don't care. You cannot expose us to a Brian Stevenson and then leave us. And I was like, you know what? My last kid was 10. I said, I'll stay until she graduates. I ran my organization called I Am More Than. And because we live in a culture where these young people are subscribing to niggas, bitches, and hoes, our motto was, we're not niggas, bitches, and hoes. You understand what I'm saying? And trust me, I had a little fight with the parents because I had to tell them, stop calling your children that, right? So it just became a thing. And so they said, we want more. And that's how we got to the name, the More Up Campus. See that? Because one of my 16-year-old girls said, teach me how to more up. I don't want to be a mother in the same housing projects that my mother and my mother's mother lived in. So I started business classes. We started teaching them art. We started exposing them to more. And hence comes the More Up Campus. During 2020, here comes COVID. And y'all, I don't know. I have horses. I have rescue horses. And I'm out there, and I'm grooming the horse. And mind you, it's COVID. And I don't have no children because I'm trying to be benevolent and give, so I don't have any children. I'm not married. So I'm out there. Y'all don't judge me because you were over there talking to yourself, too, over in the kitchen. I know, I saw you. But anyway, I'm talking to the horse, and I swear to God, Mr. Ed shows up. And I said to the horse, what are we going to do? How are we going to make it through this time? And I swear to God, that horse turned around and said, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, it's time for me to do something. So during that time, I went back to I went back to the drawing board, and I said, I got to do something because I'm starting to talk to myself and I'm answering myself at all the same time. And so I decided that I would start rethinking, how can I erect a monument to Anarcha, Lucy, and Betsy? 2020 is when this happened. Met this woman by the name of my Japanese family. I have a Japanese family. My girlfriend's Japanese and her husband's Jewish, so I call them Japanese. I don't even know their real names. I just call them Japanese. And so I'm out here in San Francisco. I'm visiting some friends, and we're sitting in Hayes Valley, and there's this beautiful sculpture named Tara, right? This is goddess. And I'm like, who did this? She's a burner. This woman is a burner. They don't sign their work. So I'm like, who did this? This is what Anarcha Lucy and Betsy needs to look like. So I'm telling my friends, my Japanese friends over breakfast, I'm like, this is what Anarcha Lucy and Betsy looks, this is what they need to look like. And so it was just a thought because I had already started my plans to erect a monument in their honor, but I was gonna do it in a different type of medium. 2 weeks later, don't y'all judge me, I get a phone call from my Japanese. They're at a Jewish Seder. And they called me up during the Seder and they said, Michelle, we found a volunteer that worked on that sculpture. Do you want us to connect you with the artist? Her name is Dana Albany. I said, no, don't worry about it. I said, wait a minute, why are we whispering again? She's like, Brianna, say her. And I was like, well, what does that mean? so we got off the phone, they called me up. I'm like, look, don't worry about it, I got it. There was like my little Japanese girl, she's like very passive aggressive. She was like, we're gonna have a conversation and then you make your decision after that. And I'm like, yes, ma'am. Okay, so we call Dana Albany, amazing artist, and we have a conversation. I showed her all of my sketches to honor these 3 girls, and I started educating her on what it meant. And Anarcha, Lucy, and Betsy are the 3 girls that Marion Sims wrote about in Stories of My Life. It was his memoir. And so I started talking to her about it. A whole year goes by, and Dana's like, I'm a white Jewish woman from San Francisco. I don't think I can help you. I was like, ma'am, do you have fallopian tubes? And she said, yes. I said, then you can help me. And she was like, why? And so she didn't want to do it, but she talked to another friend of hers, and she said, you would be crazy not to help this lady. I swear to God, she gets on the phone, she calls me, she's like, Michelle, I'm going to give you 1 month. Fly to San Francisco, send me all of your sketches. I'm going to teach you how to weld, and then you're on your own. I did that. What you're looking at right now is the head of Anarcha, what I perceived her to be in my sketches. Her head is tilted back. She's in a prayerful state. Her Adinkra symbol, which is it's on her medallion there, is a Gayame. It's a Ghanaian language, and it means God is supreme. Her head is tilted, and so I had a half a head and a half pair of legs when I came back to honor Anarcha, Lucy, and Betsy. I had about 50 different boxes with nothing but metal, and with the knowledge of, I have to do this, and I have to do it quickly. March 21, I started, and by the end of September of 21, I had 3 full-blown, beautiful metal women in Montgomery, Alabama that had been erected. Now the background, this is the background of Anarcha, Lucy, and Betsy, in the space where the mothers were erected was all plantation territory. And so I'll get to you a little bit about that, but I wanted you to see just the area. So this is the area where they were erected. These are just some of the parts of Anarcha. The subject that I use for the young lady, for Anarcha, is a little girl. Her name is, she's not little anymore. Her name is Koya, and Koya is actually from West Scottsville, which is the place where, this is the place right here, where Anarcha was enslaved. It's called West Scottsville, and it's named after Eliza Westcott. So this is the plantation territory here. And I used her face as a reference. You see the angular screws there. But the timeline, what I learned about these 3 girls, we now later have learned that there's upwards to 20 of them. And so I thought, I don't want to just erect a monument that's gonna, people that come and look at it, and, oh, this is beautiful, and it is. It's absolutely gorgeous. I actually, collected metal throughout 4 different states, right? People came from all over. Los Angeles, there's some pieces from Los Angeles. I had friends that actually came out, and we had metal raisers. And people came, donated their metal. And so basically, after the mothers went up, I went through some trying times because it costs to get, these welders and things of that nature. So it literally took me 2 months to acquire the welders, the machines, and then I had to get a shop, right? So I got my shop and commenced the welding June of 21, and again, by September, the mothers were up. Now, let's go back to their condition. The conditions of the mothers were they were 3 upwards to 20 girls that were sexually trafficked, used as breeders, and so these girls were developing what is called a vesicovaginal fistula, which is a hole that would render them incontinent. So either in the rectum, in the bladder, they could not hold their bodily fluids. Anarcha was 17 years old. Lucy was 16. And of course, Lucy was 18 and Betsy was 16 years old. They were children. And the first thing I wanted to do was to remind people that they were children. So this whole timeline, it just kind of goes through the slavery, how Anarcha was also sexually trafficked at the age of 14. Sims acquired her, and she was pregnant by the age of 17. And so basically there was this notion that black girls, black women didn't feel pain, or we had a higher pain tolerance. And we can even see that even in today's time, right? So one of the things that I wanted to do was tie in the legacy of slavery to right now, and how we treat people at our borders, and how we still sterilize women like Fannie Lou Hamer, who was a staunch advocate for the civil rights movement, voting rights. The woman was sterilized. She was beaten. They kicked out her kidney. They knocked out her eye. And so basically, I just wanted to show the history of eugenics. Can we talk candidly about that? Margaret Sanger, and how these people were not weeds. They were just weeds. They weren't even fit to reproduce, right? So that whole legacy and that whole ideology kind of follows people, and even to where we are today. So this is just a timeline that just kind of shows you how, right now in our state of Alabama, we have a woman by the name of Governor Kay Ivey, Governor Meemaw, that's what I call her, is our governor, and at our state's capital, that was built by enslaved African people in 1849. That capital was built, but outside of it right now today, 2024, there is a statue to honor J. Marion Sims, the father of modern gynecology, is at our state's capital. It's embarrassing. New York, Central Park, they removed him, but in my state of Alabama, he's still there. So that is when I learned, when I moved in 2020, when my mother called me up, I started researching the iconography in our city. And that is, the iconography is of Jefferson Davis, Robert E. Lee, J. Marion Sims. So all of these people are Confederate warlords, terrorists, if you will. And so basically, because I give tours, it just kind of led me to really do a deep dive in this history, and then how we can flip the script, if you will. So this is a little part of where my office used to be. But again, there's my father. I just talked to you all about him down there. And so we have acquired some space, right? My father had an office that's literally in the settlements where enslaved people used to exist. I don't even like to say they lived, but they existed in this area. So many of you have already been to the National Memorial for Peace and Justice, right? We are right in that area. Mothers of Gynecology is here. And then, let me see, I think my boyfriend, Brian Stevenson, is right over here. He's right there. And then we're literally a half a block up from him. So the Mothers of Gynecology Monument went up again in September of 21. And, when the mothers went up, it was an amazing thing. We had over 200 people in this space. And I said to them, we're going to invite people from around the country to learn about this history, but also we want to teach. We want to teach medical students, future practitioners, on how to implement empathy, dignity, and respect in the practice. That's what everybody's talking about. DEI. I say do away with it. We need empathy, dignity, and respect, right? You wouldn't need a DEI if we did that. If we just practice being kind to humans and being equitable. So basically, the Creative Changemakers Museum, hope you all can come. May 10th through the 11th, we're opening up the museum. I'm gonna be calling you because I saw some things in there that I want to put in my museum to honor. But so basically, the Moore Center, we're on our phase 2 right now. So here are the mothers right here. So basically, September 21, I said, we're going to teach. And we started this whole conference, my team. And we invited This woman here, the lady with the glasses, her name is Dr. Veronica Pimentel. She is the leader of the whole Anarcha Betsy Day of Reckoning movement. And you have here in the middle, I don't want to step over, this lady right here, her name is Deliso Alford. Have you all heard of Henrietta Lacks? Have you heard that they are now getting some reparations? Her family. This woman right here led the charge. She's an attorney, but she led the charge on helping them, fight the case to get reparations for Henrietta Lacks' family. This is Dietrich Cooper Owens here. There's J.C. Hallman, who wrote the book, Say Anarcha. Dietrich Cooper Owens wrote a book called Medical Bondage. So I called all of them, and I'm like, listen, we're going to have a conference, and I want you all to be my speakers. And they all came. And so the church that we're in is the church that was owned by Anarcha's owner, Eliza Westcott. Our first conference was held in this church. And so basically, 125 people said that they would come. So I'm like, oh, I'm a creative, right? So I'm like, wouldn't this be amazing if we can actually have a convening in the backyard where J. Marion Sims had his hospital. He opened up a Negro hospital in 1949. 1949, and he practiced there. And so I said, wouldn't it be amazing if we could just go to the space, have conversation about this history? So here I am, little black girl from Verbena, Alabama. I called up the owner to this building, and the gentleman said, hey, go down right now to the site. The owner is there, and just tell him what you want to do. So I'm like, okay. I called him up. He said, go down. I said, okay. I get there. Now we are about to enter the no judgment zone. What I say? No judgment. Okay. I pull up. There's this tall white man standing before me. I don't see his face. But when he turned around, he looks like Mike Pence. So I'm like, proud boy. Oh my God. I immediately judged him. I was like, he is not going to let me do this. So I said to him, he said, are you here to buy the building? I said, no. I would like to have a convening. I told him. He was like, okay. He said, do you need access to the building? I said, no. This is 33 Perry Street. Mind you, this is where J. Marion Sims had his backyard hospital called the Women Negroes Hospital in the backyard of his office. He said, do you need access? I said, no. He was like, okay, Ms. Browder, if you don't need access, you're more than welcome to use the backyard. He said, you're going to bring all your chairs, I said, yes, sir. He was like, okay, yeah, you could do that. He says, but I just thought you were here to buy the building. I said, well, let's talk about that. How much are you selling a building for? He said, $100,000. And I said, what's wrong with it? He said, Ms. Browder, if I tell you and you tell anybody, I'll deny it. I said, okay. I leaned in. I'm like, what's wrong with the building? He said, Ms. Browder, there's paranormal activity happening in this building. I did the same thing, right? He wasn't laughing. He turns beet red. He said, I'm serious. He said, the building is haunted. There's paranormal. You can hear children crying. There's people walking around upstairs. I was like, maybe it's a possum. He's like, nope. There's people walking around upstairs. He's like, Ms. Browder, we don't want it no more. My staff refuses to come in this building. I said, wow. I said, sir, I think I need this building. He said, what would you do with it? I'm triggered at this point because he reminded me of my professor, right? He already looks like Mike Pence. So I said, I would make space for doulas and midwives. Historically, doulas and midwives were the ones that were saving lives, birthing babies, catching babies. I would make space for them to practice because we live in a state where they're closing our rural hospitals. We don't have access to health care, postpartum, prenatal. Upstairs, I would create a space for students, medical students from Harvard, Meharry, Howard, Boston Medical. They can come and learn the history. They can be good doctors if we teach them the right way and change the narrative within the curriculum, right? In our curriculums right now today, it still says that Black people have a higher tolerance for pain, or we have different pain, nerve endings. Y'all, I swear to God, I said, I would do this as an educational place. He said, Ms. Browder, I sure do like that idea. And I said, shut up, Mike. He says, my name is Jim. He said, who's Mike? I said, you'll learn about it. Don't worry about it. You're going to read about it. And so he says, I love this. And I said, really? He was like, yeah. He's like, if you're going to do it, I was going to sell it for $100,000. He said, but if you're going to do all this, you need this building. I said, yes, sir. He said, I'll let you have it for $75,000. I said, what's wrong with this building? He was like, Ms. Browder, we don't want it no more. I said, okay, y'all listen, it'll be 10 years that I have my business, right? I do good business. 10 years. I bootstrapped my project. Nobody gave me any money because I went for a grant. I'm not going to tell you who do. Mellon said, your project is not in line with what we're doing. I went to several people looking for support, never got it. So I said, you know what? I got my own business. I come from a family of bootstrappers. I'll bootstrap my own thing, right? So I loaned myself $50,000 and I did the project. I said, sir, can I make an offer? He said, make your offer. I said, can I give you $35,000 down and you carry the loan? The name of the company is called First Son Finance. They're predatory lenders. They rip off black folks and brown folks. He says, you know what? I don't want to make this decision, Ms. Browder. Let me go home and talk to my wife. Y'all know what I said? Oh, God, the daughters of the Confederacy. Now I got to go deal with started from Gone with the Wind. I was devastated. I'm like, why I got to, because, you know, historically in the South, it wasn't necessarily black man, the white man that was as bad. It was the white woman that was the tyrant, right? So I'm like, daughters. So he says, call me back on Monday, and I'm gonna have you talk to my wife. Y'all, so no judgment. This building that we're talking about is literally, let me see, I want to find it for you. It's where it says memory. This building is literally downtown. Is this the one? Oh, there's some others right there. I'll leave it. This building is literally downtown, right around the corner from the slave auction, right around the corner from secession, where secession happened. 11 states gathered to downtown Montgomery to see from the Union. Literally, right around the corner from Selma to Montgomery, 100 years later, 1865, 1965. This building is in a historical space. So I'm like, 75,000. I could do it. So I said, 35,000 down, you carry the loan. He said, call my wife. So I said, nope, I'm not going to talk to the daughters. I'm not going to do it. I'm driving. I'm going to this place in Huntsville. I see Confederate flags everywhere. This is Monday. So I refuse to call them back. I'm being arrogant. I'm not going to do it. They called me. And he says, Ms. Brown, I need you to talk to my wife. And I was like, I want to talk to the daughters of the Confederacy. He's like, just tell her what you want to do with your building. And I said, okay. So I started telling her. And she said, Michelle, hold on, I kind of choke up sometimes. She said, we're so proud of the work you're doing in Montgomery. And I was like, what you talking about? She's like, we've been watching you for a long time. And I said, I don't know how to take that. She says, just give us that $35,000 and you can have the building. So here, I'm being all, you can't tell me what to do. But this is the building right here. Sims also owned the two parcels that's right there where the parking lot is located. And then the building off to the right, there's another building right there. So that whole strip is where Marion Sims would conduct these heinous crimes against black women, black children. He held them against their will. They were sexually abused. And so now I own it. There it is right there. So I'm going to fast forward to where we are today and why it's important to take these places and create healing. Because it's a stain. Like when you walk around Montgomery, and I don't know if you all felt it when y'all come when you all came, but there's a spirit there. There's an energy that's just like, and it's hard to breathe sometimes because you're walking down streets where all of this history not only unfolded, but in our laws, in our ordinances. We have this place called the Retirement Systems of Alabama. They take your money, over $54 billion, and they invest it in property that should be preserved for the civil rights or for the history that transpired there. And so to acquire this building is a major breakthrough. But there's something else that's happening. Y'all want to know? So when you talk about taking spaces and creating a place for courageous conversations, this building right here, to the right-hand side. Now this is my building right here. This is where the 2 parking lots are. So this gentleman right here, we got a couple of coins from Robert Wood Johnson, and we had just enough to get the plans for the building. But then they said, okay, it's going to be $1.3 million for us to restore this building. Somehow it inflated to 4.5. Yeah. I'm like, no way. So, and there's a line item in the contract that says that my neighbor wanted $50,000 for 9 months for the construction crew to have space to park their cars and their vehicles and things of that nature. And I was like, no way. The guy who owns this building is my friend. They loan us their space all the time for events. So I called him and I said, why would you do your sister? He's a white guy. I said, why you want to do your sister like this? He's like, what are you talking about? So, and I started telling him about the inflation. He's like, come over, I want to show you something. He shows me in the email where they had said $315 a month for 9 months, times 9 months. So basically the construction company, we have these plans to restore the building for a space for doulas, midwives, and medical students. Beautiful plans. I have them today. He says, they're trying to take you. He said, buy my building. I was like, what you talking about? He said, my building is for sale. It's been secretly for sale for the past year and a half. He said, you can have your medical students here. You can have your homes. It's 3 stories. Do you see that? 3 stories. He says, and by the way, if you buy my building, it's $2.3 million, 2.5, 2.3. He said, we'll rent out the bottom until you can figure out how you're going to do what you need to do. Then he says, I'm going to do you one better. Can I tell him about my white friend, my white right hope? Can I tell him about that? Okay, so listen. I have this lady named Rivka Gordon. I call her my great right hope, because, she can go in there. Listen, I'm not upset about it. There are certain places that I just can't go, even today. So I call my great right hope. Her name is Rivka Gordon. I said, Rivka, I need you to go in here and talk to my friend. Tell him that we want this building. He wants 2.3, but I know you can get it down cheaper. She's like, I'm going to give it my best. So she goes in and she talks to him. The report now, as of last week, my friend said, Michelle, we'll let you take the building for $250,000 down. I swear I cannot make this stuff up. He said, we'll rent out the bottom. We'll have a contractual agreement that allows you to pay us off in 3 years. And we got it down to 2.3. It's turnkey ready. It's been renovated already. It's a beautiful space, y'all. I can't wait to show you. And so basically we're in conversation so that we can bring these students to Montgomery. They can stay in the space and we can also teach them this history. Thank you. Those are the plans for the 33 Parish site, but now we're just going to restore it back to its original state and have a museum there that talks about medical history, hospitals, infirmaries, and of course the history of Marion Sims. And so where you all can help out is that we have on our, right now on our website a petition not to relocate, or excuse me, remove Marion Sims, but we want to relocate him to the site where he had his office. See, that's how you get the Confederates that's in office right now. You say, no, we're not going to remove him. We just want to relocate him. See, it's all in the language. We learned that. So we're going to relocate Jane Marion Sims, wink, wink, to the site. And we're getting some traction. I think we have something like 1,500 signatures. And so come February, when our caucus goes back into office, we have some support from across the aisle. We have some Republicans that says yes, that they will be in support of it as well. So the work continues. But these women, this place right here, this is where May 10 comes in. We are opening this space, which is there at 17 Mildred Street, as a museum for Anarcha Lucy and Betsy. We'll tell the stories of doulas and midwives in the space. It's already done. We're just working on the insides now. We'll tell the stories of Anarcha Lucy and Betsy in the space. And then, of course, there's a beautiful space in the back where we can have conversations and then host a lot of people. And we've already done it. We just hosted like 200 people on the grounds. But we'll talk about jute joints and what that meant, because we don't talk about the jute joints and where Black people went to, find some camaraderie and strength. And so there's a lot that's going on now. So this phase of our project is now complete, and we're going to open May of next year. And hopefully you all can come for that. So we're working. We're still working. And so I'm just grateful because with the stories of these girls, it's horrendous, right? But how do we take that and how do we reshape it to bring healing into the space? So in this space that you see right here, oh no, I'm sorry, that's the travel center. That's our phase 4. But in the space, there's also a place for healing for women who are pregnant that might need a little support, which we're going to do the grand opening for that phase December next month. And so basically, we're just trying to do the work, trying to make sure that people stay alive during this time of the lack of health care. And now that we're rolling back some of the policies, we have a lot of women with the IVF legislation in our state of Alabama, because it's personhood. They rendered the eggs as personhood. So a lot of the people that were receiving that IVF care are no longer able to do that. And as a matter of fact, our conference this year, there was a breakdown because the ACLU in Alabama, the director is going through her IVF. So she had to stop in February. A lot of their attorneys that are trying to get pregnant had to stop. So it's been a major thing for us, but we're creating spaces for healing as well. So we're taking this history, reckoning with it, and providing space for healing. So I think, did I cover there's more, but I can't tell you about, because I got the ADHD going on. But I would welcome you all to please come and be with us for the opening of our the conference. The conference. We have a conference February 28th through March 2nd, commemorating the Selma to Montgomery March. This conference, we have none other than Harriet Washington. I don't know if you all are familiar with her. Medical apartheid. We have Kadar Mate, who is like the president of IHI, which is the Institute for Health. I mean, these are some big wigs used to work for Partners in Health. So people are coming and having conversations with doulas and midwives in one space, which is not normally how that goes. So that's in February, and then in May, the opening of the Mothers of Gynecology Clinical Museum. See, you can get your care and your knowledge all in one place. So thank you all for having me. I'm very grateful. I'll take questions if we have time. Very grateful for the support.
I think I'm going to let you take a sip of water. One of the things I find kind of really remarkable, like hearing you, is you've built so much over such a short period of time. I mean, less time than we were developing this exhibition, really, when I think about it. I was wondering, it's like, I said, this is such a kind of a broad question, but it's like, just what you just said, for example, like the interaction between doctors and doulas and this kind of space that you're making, in the sense that there really hasn't been an opportunity for people to gather in this way. I guess this is more of an observation than a question, because it seems like there's such an urgent need, and that, it's sort of like you've opened up a door into a space and a lot of energy is rushing into that. And I guess I was just wondering what that felt like and was like from your perspective, because we're talking about a 4-year stretch of time, it seems to me. Is that about right? Like,
Actually 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so the time that I started welding was March 21, and then by September 21. So yeah, I don't know. They say that for creatives, when you start creating, because really I've been kind of lying dormant. My talent has lied dormant because I have my tour company, so I've been working with the tour company. But now that the floodgates are open, I'm no longer doing tours. That's how I've been able to come and be with you all today. Only do special tours now. And now I have time to create, but it's like a floodgate because it just keeps going. When I tackle one thing, there's something else. Okay, I'm gonna tell y'all, hold your finger up, because I have not put this out yet. Hold the finger up, sign it. That's your NDA. We're not gonna tell nobody what I'm about to tell you. You hear me? You hear me? Okay. Where does the white coat come from? The history of the white coat. Does anybody know? Used to be black coats, Have you ever seen the paintings, the illustrations of the doctors back in the 18th, 19th century? They had on black coats, bow ties. Where did that come from? So now we're tackling how doctors show up, right? Because the white coat really, it brings some tension, especially for those marginalized communities, right? There's something about doctors that we just don't trust. Tuskegee experiments, right? So we talked about, your question was, how does it make you feel? I'm on to the next thing, which is the white coat. And how can we change it in the way, how does a doctor show up where it's less intimidating, And so now we're creating our own fashion line for doctors and medical. Look at you, don't you? Okay. Zip it! We have our own fashion line that we were hoping to give people a sneak peek. Christy Turlington, I don't know if y'all are familiar with one of the supermodels, was going to be a part of that, along with June Ambrose, who are, people in the fashion world. But I feel like I want to die empty. And when I say that, it's like everything that I feel that I have to do in order to leave a mark in this world to make it better with my art is what I'm planning on doing. So I hope I answered your question in an ADHD kind of way. Did I answer your question? It just keeps going. Yeah. Can't stop it. It just keeps going. There's so much to do. So many things we have to tackle. Anybody else? Which one? The mothers? I actually was trying to, can you pull up the website? anarchalucybetsy.org. Sure. ANARCHA. Lucy Betsy.
Betsy with a Y. I love that you spelled it that way, though. B-L-E-Y.
Or you can just put in the mothers of
There you go.
There you go. So you wanted to see them? Thank you. We had the pleasure. Oh, I don't think you all have seen that one yet. Can I play this just a little bit for you? Oh, you don't have any sound. I can walk you through it, though. Basically, I decided to take the painting of the J. Marion Sims and flip it. So you can see, so this is Fred from PBS NewsHour, who I love, by the way. He was so amazing. This is me on my tours, because again, bootstrapping. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing without my business. So there's a little red trolley that we go through. I take people all around the country, or all around the city, of these historical sites. Sorry, I'm talking without the historical sites. This is our downtown Montgomery, Dr. King's Church, from Selma to Montgomery, march to the state's capitol. So I give everybody a pair of red glasses so they can see better at the end of the day. But basically, when they came and they wanted to tell the story about the mothers and the erection of the monument, I told Fred, the gentleman, there's J. Marion Sims at our state's capitol, which is just ridiculous. I cannot believe that this man is still here. And I think you talked about the pewter spoon in or the lady who did the duck. Yeah. Yes. He went to a warehouse here in Montgomery, Alabama, and bought a pewter spoon and bent the spoon so that he could open up the cervix. And so basically, I wanted to challenge the art, right? And say, okay, well, how do we flip the script to continue the conversation around the girls, not necessarily Sims? And that's the painting. You all have probably seen this. So the site where this took place is the site that we now own. That's 33 Perry Street. So, and then this was the place where I built the mothers. I'm trying to get this to move up. Is this, nope. It won't let me move it down. Can you move it down for me? There we go, I got it. And then I think you would appreciate this, the lady that asked for the photo. But this is Smart History. When they heard about what we were doing, they came down to the site. This was right when I first started. So the full site has been developed now, but that's the mothers there. And Arca, Lucy, and Betsy, the three. Sure.
Around the base, it looks like there's something written around the base of the...
Okay, so remember I told you I tried mailing. I tried several people. So what I did was I sold bricks and T-shirts. So the bricks have names of people that either lost a mother or they wanted to celebrate their mother, honor them in some capacity. And so that's what you see around there. I actually raised $63,000 off of bricks, yeah. And so paired that up. This is the space that we now own, right there. That's Betsy. Her Adinkra symbol is strength. And I created her with cornrows, their hair. You see the scissors, the wire suture that J. Marion Sims claims that he used to suture their wounds, the fistula. And so, yeah, you could go onto our site, and the video is there. But if you notice, there's latches, and I just put a gloss on them this year because I wanted them to patina. I didn't want them to look so fresh and new. So now they're a little darker than this, but they have aged well, and now they're sealed.
Do you think you'll be, because like one of the things I saw was that you had added a chain and that had linked them together. Sorry. I saw that you added a chain that linked, I don't know if it's all of them together or two of them together.
I did. That was Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
The reversal of Roe v. Wade.
Is it becoming kind of like a living project in that
Yes.
you're kind of responding to things through them as, yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Absolutely.
in photographs of it, I've seen too that there's like lots of like posters or words and images on the walls around the park.
yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it has definitely evolved since we started this, since I erected them. Now there's full story. Like all of that is totally gone. We've just let them patina again. and they're naked. The women that you see, they're naked because in the story behind them with the father of gynecology, with the mothers, they're clothed, right? But historically, they would have been naked. So yeah, the campus has evolved since the first time that we unveiled the mothers. Yep. There's a serving platter. And then every one of that's friendship. So got the Ghanaian language for friendship. So each one of them has their own symbol. Yeah. I'm proud of it. And that's the fistula there, the hole, and then that's the actual fistula. So there's 4 pieces to the piece.
Yes, one of the things I really appreciate about this work and is that it invites you to kind of think, to like decode, to read it. I don't want to say decode exactly, but that you have the sense that a lot of the objects have a meaning, and even if you don't know anything about the story, I think that that kind of assemblage, that you feel like these things are coming out of some kind of history, or they have some kind of history that's brought to the sculpture. It makes them feel very inviting and accessible, even if you don't know what everything means. I feel like it's an important part of it. It's dynamic, even though I've only seen these pictures and videos. So.
Oh, there's the inside of the building, right here. But yeah, it's they're evolving. They're telling their own story, as you can see. So that's the painting of.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's an ongoing thing of just it hits a little differently, and I call it. You may feel a little pressure, because. I've had Black people tell me now, why would you do something like this? It's hard sometimes for people to grasp, but we need you to see it differently if the shoe was on the other foot.
Yeah. So I have a little question, but I just want to say thank you. I work in I'm here. I work in museums, and as you mentioned at the beginning, it's been a rough 2 weeks. And just coming here tonight and hearing you speak reminds me of a kind of like, there's hope, and there's when you feel pushed down, that like doing the work, doing what you're doing, that they're even in the most difficult of situations. I don't know. It's reminded. This has been a very good event for me right now. I'm sure for other people here too. But I suppose I do have a question, which is to bring it back to what you said at the beginning about what's happened in recent political history, and how do you think that impacts the work you might do in the future? I know it's a bit soon maybe to ask that question, but and if you're not sure yet, it's fine, but yeah, I would love to hear what your thoughts are for your community on the present moment.
You know what, I find it very interesting, especially right now, because I've been given the opportunity to speak before the American Medical Association for the Grand Rounds event. It's called Race Forward. And all of these nationally known organizations are coming together in healthcare to really challenge what's going on in healthcare, which is, the continuation, what we call the legacy of slavery, in terms of, just not caring about patients and or not listening to them. And now they're calling us to the table. And when I say they, I always talk in those terms, but I'm also always reminded that the Mothers of Gynecology are with me. They called me to this project. And my ancestors, if you will. And so now, as next week, we're going to the National Grand Rounds, and we're talking to doctors on how what is health justice. We're taking it, a different level. And that's basically what the name of the conference portion is. Health justice is our co-creation. So we're teaching, this college dropout is now teaching doctors and medical facilitators on how to conduct their business with empathy, dignity, and respect. Yeah, so hopefully we'll go to the White House. We'll talk to them about empathy. Yeah, let's do away with DEI. We don't need it. How about empathy? How about some dignity? How about some respect? Something that they don't know much of. But anyway, I'm going to stay off of that. Anybody else? That's it? Thank you.